Welcome back to Paint, Paint, Paint. I'm Brian Dickinson.
And I'm Devin Gall. And today we're going to be doing something a little different.
Me and Devin have always shared a common love of cinema, and it's always been a staple of our friendship to talk about old and new movies. So, that love of visual storytelling is kind of how Paint, Paint, Paint was formed.
So it felt like a natural step for us to start discussing movies. We want to talk about movies that we enjoy personally and newer movies that pique our interests, as well as if they're any good or not.
And to keep with the theme of past episodes, I will be doing artwork that corresponds with the movies we're reviewing. You'll also notice that there's a bit of different formatting. I've moved to New York, so we're doing this via webcam, hence the headphones.
So without further ado, let's get started. I know we're a bit behind the times on this one, but seeing as it's #1 at the box office and the highest grossing movie of the year so far, we're going to be talking about Guardians of the Galaxy, a sci-fi Marvel movie about a ragtag team consisting of an outlaw, an assassin, a destroyer, a raccoon, and a tree, who find themselves the prime target of a manhunt after discovering an orb coveted by evil forces.
So, to start off things, me and Devin are going to talk about our history and expectations for Guardians of the Galaxy. I had no real history until I heard the announcement that the movie was coming out. Me and Devin have always been huge fans of the Marvel movies.
Huge fans.
And we really didn't know anything about Guardians of the Galaxy or where this was going to go, like how it would fit in. Now they're tackling the outer space movies. I really didn't honestly see it coming, at least this soon. So, out of just pure curiosity, I read all the comics and got an idea of what the characters are and what was in store.
For me, I stayed absolutely pure. I had no idea what the comic was. I had no idea what to expect from it. I never read anything, and I chose not to read anything to go in with kind of a fresh, blank slate on it. But I think it's really interesting that with the Phase 2 Marvel Cinematic Universe that we're getting is jumping to the intergalactic stuff, because there's a lot of really good stuff in those stories, which is why I really liked this movie specifically for the story of the Infinity Stones. I've always loved that, and I've always loved Thanos as well.
Yeah, and I had been really curious about that, where they've been teasing us with a lot of stuff like the Collector. There's been a lot of hints at the Infinity Stones. They showed the gauntlet of Thanos that holds all the gems and Thor. They've definitely given us a peek at some of the Infinity Stones.
Yeah, quite a bit actually. But this was the first time they really dived in and said, like, this is what an Infinity Stone is. This is how they work, you know. So they're really going balls to the wall with this one, which I enjoyed.
Yeah, and I wasn't even expecting that. To a degree, I figured it had to do with Thanos or Ronan or something. I didn't know it was going to be both. I will say, if you are trying to get into Guardians of the Galaxy, I tried to read the first comic, and you have to start with the Annihilation Conquest series, which was an overlapping intergalactic war, and kind of helps with the comic foundation of the characters, or otherwise you'll just be completely confused.
Gotcha.
So now me and Devin are going to talk about our opinions on the movie and what our response was to it. I know for me personally, I couldn't have been more pleased. I didn't know if it was even possible to translate it because it's so quirky, and I think James Gunn is the only person who could have done it. It was amazing how he did this quirky movie. The music, everything came together. I really love Star-Lord, was obviously the biggest plus for me. He pulls the whole movie together. And then all the other characters, even Groot was my favorite, even though he says 3 words the whole movie. The only real drawbacks were I thought that the villains were a little flat. Like, for one, I was disappointed that Ronan in the comics is actually not exactly a bad guy. He goes back and forth, but in this, he's kind of a pussy. And I really loved him in the comics, and he's a badass. I thought Lee Pace's voice was great for it, but he just was kind of a dork. And even Thanos, we don't get much of him. So it's just kind of like, they're bad guys because they're bad guys. There's no development like the other characters. Other than that, I mean, I still absolutely loved the movie.
Yeah, I think mine is a little bit more of how you say, skeptical or negative review. All in all, I would say I enjoyed it as what it was. Definitely the cast was great. Groot, obviously everybody's favorite, but I think Dave Bautista did a great job for being, a wrestler. I mean,
Which you really expected that.
right. I mean, what does he have to offer amongst a cast of like veteran actors, But I think he held his own. As far as I'm a nerd, pure and simple. I'm a geek. I like the Infinity Stones. I like the Marvel stuff. I like the way they're going with the films. So that really was a plus. Thanos for me was a complete and utter surprise added into the movie. I didn't know he was going to be in it. I thought maybe a teaser at the end like they did in the Avengers, but he full-on revealed, voice, everything, I think you hit a good note when you said the bad guys are one-sided, just villainous, which is boring for me to watch. But other than that, I thought it was fun, entertaining, and just really well done in general.
Yeah, I have to say, it kind of had a same feel to one of my favorite movies, Hook. What I loved about it is more that they captured and made this universe, and it's so believable. And it's not a masterpiece by any means. It's just fun the whole way through, and you can't help but have a smile. I mean, like you said, Dave Bautista was hysterical. I love his, nothing goes over my head
My reflexes
line,
are too
and
fast.
it's just...
Yeah, Dave Bautista did great. I still love his moment where they're talking. It's like, when did we discuss that? Oh, I didn't hear. I was thinking about something else. His comedic moments work perfectly, and he really filled out the group, I think. So
I could say he even maybe did better than The Rock in a lot of things. I was really surprised.
Especially The Rock at the beginning of his career.
Well, I even thought he did better than what's-her-butt who plays Gamora.
Zoe Saldana?
Yeah, hers was the only character of the good guys, at least, that I was a bit... There just wasn't much to it. I thought the headphone scene was cute with her and Star-Lord, where he puts them on her, but then the rest of it, I was just like, did they just be like, hey, why don't you just do what you did in Avatar, but this time you'll be green?
Yeah. Yeah, with Gamora, she was such a contradiction because they kept saying she is a living weapon and assassin, but at every turn she is always being captured and can't get out of it. It's like, if you're a living weapon, how come you can't defend yourself? What's going on here? You should be kicking ass right now. There's no reason you should be in any of these situations or positions at all. So that confused me a little bit with her.
Well, especially since I thought Nebula, her fight scenes with her, you'd expect Nebula to win because she was a badass the whole movie. I was completely surprised. Didn't even recognize Karen Gillan and had no idea she could be so evil. And
I had a problem with Nebula just because two things I love. Doctor Who, Amy Pond, and I loved Nebula as a kid. I had the trading cards of the Marvel Universe and everything, and Nebula was one of my favorite, and I always enjoyed her in the comics. But in the film, as much as I love the actress, I don't think she was portrayed as a badass as much as she was just screaming. She didn't have any command to her voice or authority. She was just yelling all the time, and it was like, I get it. You're trying really hard, but I don't think it meshes necessarily as well. And that's the same thing with Gamora. That's the same thing with Ronan. Ronan did pretty well, I think.
So what did you think of Josh Brolin as Thanos?
For Thanos, for me, I'm so half and half on him right now, man. I mean, the CGI was too CGI, I like the idea of the motion capture because you're never going to get an actor who looks like Thanos, who has the build of Thanos, so motion capture is the way to go. Maybe scale it back a bit, because it's one of those looks so real that it looks fake type deals for me. For me, I like Josh Brolin as an actor, but the voice just did not resonate or fit what I would ever have put Thanos in my head as, and that's going to happen with movies and interpretations and art direction and stuff like that. But for me, I thought maybe somebody, hell, I would have liked if Morgan Freeman did the voice of Thanos. I mean, I just would love to listen to that. But Josh Brolin, really, you could just tell it's Josh Brolin through a synthesizer that makes him sound deeper and more badass. So they kind of just threw it at the wall and it didn't stick for me. But That's just me.
I thought Josh Brolin wasn't a bad choice for the voice. I thought it was like he has a commanding voice and you need something that has a presence, and his is so deep. But I will say there wasn't much of it. I'll be curious to see what he's like in the future. I thought he looked better. Was it the end of Avengers where we got the teaser for him?
Yeah, the end of the first Avengers, yeah, and he's just a quick glimpse and then it goes away, you know. So as a nerd, I'm freaking out. As a normal moviegoer, 90% of people didn't know who that was, but I mean, obviously he's got the iconic large chin, large helmet,
the cuts in it.
Yeah, so I mean, he's being done moderately well. I'm just hoping that in the future it'll translate a little better than it did here. But this is the first time he's being seen, so you have to get acclimated to it. It's going to be an interesting transition.
I thought Thanos might be in it because in the comics, what's his butt? Dave Bautista.
Drax the Destroyer.
Drax the Destroyer. His sole purpose of being created was to kill Thanos. Like, because he has a vendetta because Thanos killed his family, which they kind of changed to Ronan because Ronan was a pawn of Thanos. But that's, like, in the comics, his whole MO is to kill Thanos.
I really like the way they changed it in the film. Like, Ronan killed his family, but then at the end he's like, well, you know what? I think it's really Thanos I need to kill. Because it's that never-ending lust for revenge, you know, to get everybody that's wronged you, not just this person, you know, it's to kill everybody. And I think that makes Drax interesting and really well done.
Overall, if you look at the source material, I was curious how they'd go about it because they can go any way, really. And they're always switching up who's a good guy, who's a bad guy. Some are wishy-washy. That's why I was a little disappointed with Ronan, because actually in the comics, Star-Lord and Ronan are kind of friends for a little bit. So the fact that they're just complete enemies, because I think they work together to stop what's-his-butt, the new bad guy for the Avengers.
Ultron.
I think they work together to stop Ultron in the comics. So I was not expecting him to be a bad guy.
The problem with the Marvel Cinematic Universe right now is they do not develop villains, and they only have one solid villain they can use. The only villain that's well done, well thought out, well played and everything is Loki, and that's it. Everybody else that might be interesting, like Ronan, oh, he could be a good guy, he could be a bad guy, they're killed, you know? And it's something I know you had said about Venom and Spider-Man, like why kill him when his existence opens up a whole new path for those kind of movies and things like that?
Well, because Carnage, his origin story is that he's the prison mate of Venom. So why not go into that? Why just kill off all your bad guys?
Especially when so many have such rich, deep backstories like Ronan. Like, I liked his, you know, you have persecuted my people, so I'm gonna kill you, you know? So, I mean, that's an interesting concept, but they don't care about it.
Into it at all.
They're just like...
It's just the one thing where he smashes the dude's head.
Yeah, pretty much. And it's either black or white with Marvel right now with villains, and they're always villains. There are no redeeming qualities. You're not supposed to like them. They need to die at the end of the movie. And I ultimately think that's a mistake. As much as they're amassing a lot of superheroes, they need to start amassing their supervillains as well, because it's kind of a shame that Loki is the only one. Let's talk about some of the things we enjoyed real quick. Michael Rooker being one of them. Obviously, we said, you know, Groot, Dave Bautista.
The whole cast, like John C. Reilly, even for just his brief moment, was really good.
Yeah, he's funny. Glenn Close is kind of a bit of older star power that they need to, you know, she looks like she could command an entire Nova Corps military.
I liked the little nod to Cosmo the dog. I was wondering if he'd be in there because how are you going to do a telepathic dog without it turning out like Aragon or something, which was probably worse than X-Men 3.
Yeah, all the little Marvel tie-ins were fun for me. They show, I think, in the collector's room, they show a picture of the Tesseract. They show a dark elf from Thor 2 being held captive, as well as a Chitauri soldier who was held captive. They showed Cosmo the dog.
Oh, and the end credits scene.
Spoiler, Howard the Duck is in the end credits scene, and you know what? That scene is good for a great laugh. But the problem for me is, I know when Marvel says something or shows you something, especially in their cinematic universe, it is not done lightly. It is done because they plan on doing something about it. Like Stephen Strange is mentioned in Captain America Winter Soldier, and now you hear the Stephen Strange movie is coming out. So I'm just like deathly afraid that they showed Howard the Duck, and now Howard the Duck's going to be a movie.
I thought it was just a funny joke. I really don't think they'll do it.
I don't think they're going to bring it back. I think it was just a jab at themselves. I mean, I hope not.
So the one thing I thought about this, it's one of the strongest origin stories. And I think a lot of that is we haven't heard the story a bazillion times like Spider-Man or X-Men, but that's like the best part about the movie.
Yeah, it's very fresh. It's a new idea that we've never seen before. We've seen these origin stories so many times that it's nice to see a new one. You know, no matter how they've skewed it from the comic books, I don't think it makes a difference at all. So I think they did a really good job assembling them and giving them all their motives and giving each of them a moment that really shows their character or how they would react in situations or what they're seeking. So I think they did great doing all that as well. If I were to describe this movie in anything, I would say it would literally be too much. I wanted to be weaned into this world of space and everything. You know, it's probably smarter that he did this, but it's just on my preference. But James Gunn, he kind of just like throws you in and says, this is what it is, accept this or you're not going to like the rest of the movie. And eventually you do accept it, you know. But for me, there's just too much weird aliens, too many, you know, vibrant colors, too much juxtaposition with the great soundtrack and what they're, you know, what the music is played against. Sometimes is a little off or a little weird.
Well, I think that's what brings it together is he's the human. The music helps you relate to it. It's kind of the glue.
Absolutely.
But like you said, it is a bit much like the intro was like, what the hell?
Yeah.
I thought it was a trailer at first. I didn't even realize that was...
And the mother's like dying and you're like, wait, when am I supposed to be laughing? When is Chris Pratt going to be doing crazy stuff? Why am I watching this woman die?
Yeah.
And ultimately, I think it does resonate emotionally for me. You know, it's just like when the first reboot Star Trek movie came out. They opened with some pretty hardcore emotional stuff. And I like that they do that. So I think he was kind of going for that same vein. I don't think it necessarily worked 100%, but it was an interesting way to jump into it.
So what was your favorite scene? I know for me, the floating skull at first, like just seeing a shot of it, I was like, this looks stupid. And then they start going through the skull and the shots were all really cool, and I loved the David Bowie going on. It was just really neat. Well, and I guess to say my favorite was also the dancing Groot, which is obviously why I did the art of that.
Yeah, definitely. Dancing Groot. And I mean, they hint like his death is foreshadowed. Having never read the comics, I know you said he's died several times and regrown.
Yeah, I knew that was coming. So.
Yeah, I mean, they hint at the beginning he gets his arms chopped off by Gamora, and he says, they're going to grow back, you dumb bastard. When at the end he's like, oh my god, he's dead. I'm like, wait, you know for a fact he grows back, so why are you so concerned about this? But, I mean, you know, but it is a great emotional moment for them. I do want to...
And, I mean, he kind of steals the show.
Yeah, so I was surprised that they hired a hugely famous actor to do 3 words, maybe 4 with the addition at the end, but 4 words the entire movie. Like, I know we had talked about that personally before the movie came out, and I said, I can't even imagine why they would do that. And I was like, no way they would ever do that. That's the stupidest thing. And they did, and you know what? It works. It works. And I was really heated about it. I was like, why would they do that? That's dumb. That makes no sense. Why pay this actor a full paycheck to say one thing? And you were like, no, it's going to happen, man. You're going to see. It's going to be there. And you know what? It was, and it worked. It worked pretty well.
Well, I saw an interesting article with Vin Diesel, which the whole reason they asked him was the Iron Giant, which was like a classic
Yeah, great movie.
And he didn't say a whole lot in that, but his whole voice is like the foundation for that movie.
If you read the IMDb trivia of Guardians of the Galaxy, which I'm prone to do with every movie I watch, they say that the same sound technician that he worked with on the Iron Giant is the sound technician for Groot. So they had this whole history together, and it was just a really nice, pleasant surprise. So I thought that was really cutesy and interesting.
Well, so anyways, I guess my overall thing was I love the movie. I'd probably give it like 4.5 out of 5. Or like overall, it's just fun. You could watch it over and over again.
I agree. I still have hang-ups about it. Like I say, you know, it's not the best movie I've ever seen. I know I told you before that I feel Guardians of the Galaxy, while a fun, entertaining movie, I've seen it before. I've seen all of the characters, the action sequences, the ending. I've seen it in other sci-fi movies, and sometimes, in some instances, the other movies have done it better than Guardians of the Galaxy did. And that's just me, but...
Well, it was like the new Star Trek. It was very similar to that for me.
Right. Yeah, so I mean, it just did... For me, it did nothing new, but it did enough to entertain me to the point that I didn't notice that, you know, for a while that I was just watching the same old, same old. So to commend it, I have to commend it for that. I'd probably give it a 3 out of 5. So,
well,
yeah, that's it, guys. Let us know what you think of our new format. Let us know what you think of the art. If you want to give us suggestions for Paint, 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 which is always open to do, and there's more of that coming. And
what you guys thought of the movie? What was your favorite scene or character?
Yeah, scenes, characters, music, anything you want to talk about, leave it in the comments below. And Richard Sprinkles is going to be back, and hopefully we're going to be throwing some more movie reviews your way. So thanks for watching, guys.